being laid off, burnout, and grieving. You just can't skip the grieving process. Hi, I'm Brett, the Audi Boss, and on this channel we talk about ADHD and autism in the workplace. I'm Brett. I was a boss with over 10 years of training for management and leadership experience. In time of recording, I was laid off about 4 weeks ago. It was a part of a big organizational change. I, along with many of my colleagues, lost my job. Each week I've been trying to chronicle a little bit of what that process has been like for me as I try to find my new way on this side of being unemployed. And I've been trying to sort of figure out and process a lot of my thoughts, my feelings, and just sort of going through the process. And I'll be honest with you, I've recorded stuff every single week, but I'm not posting those videos because a lot of what's been happening is I start to film, I start to talk about something, I get a little overwhelmed, I get really burnt out, and I kind of get stuck in the grieving process, and then I want to sort of grieve off camera. And I don't want to be perceived when I'm grieving. But I do want to talk about the grieving process. I do want to talk about what I'm processing and what I'm thinking about. So I'm going to do a little bit of that. I'm hoping it will be helpful for somebody. Certainly it's been helpful for me to sit and talk. I'm a verbal processor, so being able to talk to you about this is really helping me in my process and in my journey. And one of the consistent things that has come up for me over the last 2 or 3 weeks has been the loss of community, the loss of my identity as somebody who was a really strong leader, or at least I tried to be a really strong leader, and the loss of my friends and my colleagues. As much as I try not to be a Michael Scott, the people that were in my department, my team, were really close friends. We were really our work family. And even though it's usually a red flag when you say, oh, we're a family, that's usually a red flag. In our case, we really did try to strive to take care of one another and look out for one another and be friends with one another and help out each other. I worked really hard to advocate for my team and for my people and to meet their needs every day. As a boss, as a manager. I often looked at leadership and being a manager as sort of like being an elected official, probably naively so. I always felt that it was my responsibility to take care of my team and to advocate for them and figure out what their needs were and ask them what their needs were and then work hard to take care of those needs so that they could be successful in their job. I wanted them to feel secure in their jobs. I wanted them to have psychological safety, which would prevent burnout. Hopefully, that's what the studies told us. And so I worked really hard at being the voice of my team and the voice of my people so that I could help them and get them what they needed every week. And sometimes it worked and sometimes it didn't, but I was always transparent with my team when it didn't work. We would always talk about what was working, what wasn't working, how we could do better, ways that I could frame things, ways that I could argue for things, and we would talk through compromise. When I wasn't successful at getting them the exact thing that they needed, I would come back to them and say, you know, here's what I tried. Here's the argument I made. Here's the counter argument. Here's where we had to compromise. And can we all work with the compromise that's here? If not, okay, let's process out why and why not and figure out maybe a way to go back and try again. Or how can we go forward with the compromise that we got? And oftentimes I found that that transparent give and take of the conversation was successful because I found pretty quickly in my leadership position, it was about having vision and treating people like adults. People don't want to be managed like kids or children or like they're in school or something. They want to be treated like adults. And so that's what I tried to do. Early on in my career, I tried to show up in this way where I was the expert. I was the guy who was hired to like come up with the strategy and do this and do that. That only lasts for so long. And you're not going to make a real productive team off of being a know-it-all and someone who seems to want to make all the decisions themselves. You have to have a vision and you have to have a buy-in for that vision. But most importantly, when you listen to the people around you who you trust, who you put in those positions to do what they do best every day, you draw out a better vision because everybody contributes to the ideas and they help call out the things that aren't going to work because they know, because they're the experts in their jobs. And so when you factor that in, you build a better vision. And then it was my responsibility to go fight for that vision for our team, for our people, for our mission, so that we could then build that thing up and make it a reality. And I did that for 12 years. And then one day it was gone. And I was no longer doing that. I wasn't fighting for anybody. I wasn't advocating. I wasn't working collegially and with my close friends and talking to them every day and in meetings and every day and seeing these people that I've grown to care deeply for day in and day out. And then the wider community outside of that, that whole family, that whole friendship, that whole community was just gone in an instant. And is something you have to grieve. If I don't take time to grieve it, it's just not healthy. And I'm not prepared to go do the next thing, whatever the next thing is. I have to go through this process. And in the process of going through that grief, it's really occurred to me how much burnout I was in and just how burnt out I've been and how hard it's been to even just do this, a thing that I really want to do, make videos and continue to create content for my different channels and talk about autism and ADHD, my special interest in the workplace. It's been hard to pick up the microphone and the camera and to sit down and to record every day because I've needed to recover from that burnout. And I talk about burnout a lot on this channel, but I usually talk about it in the sense of autistic and ADHD burnout. But in my case, this is actually more traditional work burnout. And I happen to be autistic with ADHD and have OCD and anxiety and all these other things. So it's kind of a mixed bag of burnout. I'm unmasking more. And I really like it. But it's also been kind of an exhausting process to unmask more and more every day. Now that I'm not putting on the performance of work and I'm not putting on the performance of the boss or the leader or the manager and having to go show up in a certain way in a corporate environment and speak in a certain tone, craft my words, my language, my scripts, such a specific way. It's been great, actually, to be able to not do that anymore and to put that away and to take off that mask and that outfit and that performance and those scripts and to put them away and to take that time to recover from all of that has been a gift. But I need to continue to be on that journey of healing and processing and grieving and recovery from all that burnout so that I can continue to be more creative. I'm feeling more creativity come back to me. I'm feeling more ideas, more inspiration, more of myself. 12 years ago, when I left my last career, which was a broadcast journalist, I talked about how my humanity was growing back because you had to turn off a lot of things when you're in the newsroom. And as a hyper empathetic autistic individual, that empathy and the way I would soak in the empathy around me and take it in would really be heavy for me. And I had to turn a lot of that off when I was in the newsroom. And then I went too far and did too much empathy acquisition. And now I'm trying to find my balance again. So my humanity grew back. But then over the last 5 or 6 years, I was able to discover the person who I am with my late diagnosis, coming out late and everything. But then I also miss my community of my ERGs, my employee resource groups. In particular, my LGBTQ+ Pride employee resource group. That crew meant the world to me, and I miss them greatly. I missed having a queer community that I could go to every day, every week, every month, every year, where I could be unapologetically queer and not have to mask and not have to worry about my identity. And in those places, I had it every day. Not having that feels like something else that was lost in this process. And it's one more thing I have to grieve. Now I'm finding my way back, but I'm in this weird intersection of happy to be recovering from all of that, grieving all the things that I lost, my friends, my role, my identity, and trying to figure out what my new identity is, not waking up and being this version of a leader or a boss anymore. Yes, I'm still a boss. I'm trained. I have all the training. I know how to do it. I help people every day with those things. The identity is gone. Now it feels like there's a little bit of imposter syndrome as I try to show up and talk about these things, but it's still lived experience. It's still things that I've lived and learned and done, and that didn't go away. My experiences, my knowledge, and my expertise, I still have all of that. I'm just not practicing it in the same way that I did before. And that's okay. And I'm trying to accept that and come to terms with that and heal from that part of the breakup of my job. So I've always advised people when they transition from one job to another, you need to take time to grieve the thing. I always tell people that. And you need to take time to sort of like have a quick reset before you start your next job. If you have voluntarily left a job, you need to take that time to like rest, recover, and mentally prepare for the next job. I've always told people that. I've always felt I needed that. When I transitioned from being a journalist to the career I just left, I needed to do that for myself. I took 2 weeks in between, but I was mentally preparing myself to leave that job for weeks ahead of time because I had given my notice at that time and, went through the process of my own initiation. In this instance, I didn't go through the process of my own initiation, and that has added an extra layer of complication to the burnout. I'm very much burnt out from having done that job. I've felt that burnout for years, but I was managing to continue to go through it. And this is more traditional burnout, not necessarily autistic and ADHD burnout, but I can tell there's things in there, especially right now. I'm feeling my ADHD really fight, like really showing up every day, not allowing me to do things that I want to do, or feeling like I'm just really pushing away away from things and just sort of having this burnout where I need to just recover. I need to just rest. And I've been trying to do that, but so many different things keep coming up because life keeps going. Then at a certain point, that burnout recovery has traces of a little bit of depression. In particular, time of recording, we've just changed the clocks. We've done fall back, the end of daylight savings, which is always a difficult transition for me. Transitions are always hard for me. They've always been hard for me. I attribute that to autism and having to change up routines and change up everything that's around routines and workflows. And especially a part of my grieving right now has been loss of routines. I had such a set sort of pattern of routines and, things that I would do every single day. And then those were just gone. And I've been trying to find new systems, new routines, new workflows, new everything. But also I need to rest and recover from the old routines before I can lock into new routines. And there's no solid ground right now. There's so many things that are constantly in flux and constantly changing as I prepare for, different life changes. And then daylight savings ended and we reversed the clocks an hour. It's getting darker at 4:30 now. It's brighter earlier in the day. And so those routines are throwing me off too and physically throwing me off. So time of recording, I'm trying to figure out how to work through the burnout recovery, the exhaustion, a little bit of depression, a little bit of seasonal affective disorder. I'm trying to work through that stuff. And I'm trying to get myself to find things I want to be doing so that I can kind of work through that recovery. So I'm, again, as always, consulting the Autistic Burnout Workbook from Dr. Megan Enough. And I'm also reviewing more traditional burnout. Even doing this video has taken me, 2 weeks to get myself together to try to get it done and do all the work and everything because I have other things I want to do, but this is a barrier. If I don't get this one done, I can't do the next one and all these other different things. Hopefully some of this has been helpful. I hope so. Please like and subscribe. It really does help my channel grow, in particular with where I'm at right now with being in between jobs and sort of the next journey that I'm about to take. There's a whole different video of this I tried to film on the beach and I scrapped the whole thing. It didn't work. None of it worked. It was too complicated. It was beautiful. It looked gorgeous, but it just didn't work. However, there's one funny story that I just decided to record while I was on the beach with how hard it was to film and to be seen on the beach and all of that. I am going to put that video as a bonus video up on my Substack with this video. So if you're interested in seeing that, it's a quick video. It's 2 or 3 minutes long. It's basically a quick story about just how many complications I ran into trying to film this video on the beach. If you'd like to see that story, check that out over on my Substack. Be sure to subscribe. I'm going to leave that as a free video on Substack with this video at the bottom of my Substack story for this one, and then that's a bonus video. If you have an idea for a video or you have a topic you'd like for me to cover, please let me know. I am going to start to slowly move off of this topic, but it's going to come up in my conversations as I go along. So my next video is going to be focused on the interview process, how to do the interview in 2025 with trying to talk about queer identity, trying to talk about neurodiversity identity, and more importantly, how do we start ERGs? That's the next topic that we're going to be covering. I've got a great expert that's going to walk us through that. I'm excited to share that with you, so that's going to be the next upload. So please be sure to like and subscribe to check out that and more, and check out some of the other videos while you're here. Thanks for watching. As always, I'm Brett the Audi Boss.